Hey everyone, Wandering Bard here, and before I jump into the content, I wanted to put out a quick disclaimer similar to the one that I did in the SAS video, that this game, and by extension this video, has scenes that are graphic, has scenes that are sexual in nature, and also has some scenes that are very distressing, including a scene where a character chooses to end their own life, which I had to include all of these for the sake of completeness. So like in the SAS video, I wanted to put out this disclaimer ahead of time that, yeah, those scenes are in there. I know that a lot of you probably knew about these because this is an M-rated game, but I wanted to make this video assuming that whoever was watching knew nothing about it. And in spite of what certain snarky YouTube comments will say, I do think that putting out these types of disclaimers is valuable for making sure that everyone can enjoy these videos in a way that is safe for them. So there will be timestamps in the description for anyone who wants to skip those scenes, and yeah, hope that you can enjoy watching. Let's get into it. As a bard, it is my prerogative to share stories, and there's one story that I've been looking forward to sharing with y'all for a couple of years now. In this video, I will be summarizing the long and detailed plot that is Final Fantasy XVI in a way that's hopefully digestible not just in terms of story, but thematically as well. This video is partly just because I really love the story of this game, and also meant as a precursor for when I eventually start doing character analysis videos for it. So if you do enjoy this video, please consider subbing to the channel since there will be a lot more like this coming real soon. There's also now a community Discord server where you can discuss characters, challenge running, and the like, which you can join using the link in the description. Please also consider leaving a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video, because this is my first time trying to do a story summary like this, so I'd really appreciate any feedback y'all have on how I do. Thank you so much, and yeah, let's get straight into it.
Are you ready to accept the truth? I am.
When the world was still young, we visited upon it a miracle, magic, and in its light did all life flourish.
So before we can dive into the plot, we do need to establish a few things about the world here. Valisthea is a land split between two continents, Storm and Ash. It is populated by humans, but there are numerous relics, airship parts, and ruins from a prior civilization known only as the Fallen. The source of magic in this world is ether, which acts as life energy for the land, the vegetation, and even the water. Crystals are used to pull ether from the world and focus it to work magic. But doing this drains the energy from the land, and once the ether is all gone from an area, it's consumed by blight, which pollutes the water, kills vegetation, and renders magic unusable. And as the blight creeps in and renders the land unlivable, people flock to the greatest deposits of ether in the world, the Mother Crystals, towering crystal structures that magic crystals are mined from. The various civilizations in Valisthea are built around these Mother Crystals, and wars over their blessings have been fought for as long as anyone can remember. At the forefront of these wars are the Dominants, select people chosen to channel the essence of and even transform into a powerful being called an Icon. Dominants are extremely special not only for their transforming ability, but because they can channel powerful magic directly from their icon rather than relying on ether. The only other people who can do magic without crystals are bearers, people who are somehow born with the ability to channel ether through their own bodies. But bearers are enslaved to make use of their magic, and normal people have been taught to see them as less than human over the centuries. Magic is also a curse for them, as prolonged use eventually causes them to turn to stone. Dominants, meanwhile, are celebrated in society and usually either already tied to a nation's ruling family or gain a leading role in politics once their power manifests. So most nations in Valisthea have at least one dominant on their side, and most are also built around a mother crystal. However, the Grand Duchy of Rosaria, where our story begins, has no mother crystal. They've had a back and forth war with their neighbors to the west, the Iron Kingdom, over a mother crystal which is currently held by the Iron Kingdom. They've also had repeated feuds with the northern tribes, who invaded Rosaria in an act of desperation after their own mother crystal collapsed. The dominant of Shiva, the Warden of Ice, is born from the northern tribes, but Rosaria has the dominant of Phoenix, Warden of Fire, and the War of Fire and Ice eventually ended in Rosarian victory. As of the beginning of the game, Rosaria has Jill Warwick, the chief's daughter from the northern tribes, as a political hostage as insurance against further aggression. However, Duke Elwyn doesn't treat her like a prisoner. In fact, he insists that she be raised alongside his two sons, Joshua and Clive, who happens to be the main character.
He won! See? I told you he could do it.
Aye.
So Clive is the older son, and a very brave warrior at that. He's powerful in battle, but also compassionate to the people around him, and well respected by soldiers and nobles alike. With his mother, Annabella, being of the bloodline that births Phoenix's dominant, everyone felt his ascension was assured. However, for unknown reasons the Phoenix rejected Clive, preferring instead his young brother, Joshua. Clive instead settled into the role of Joshua's shield, and the Phoenix blessed him with a portion of its fire so he might be equipped for that duty. Clive is therefore an oddity in this world, neither a dominant nor a bearer, but able to do magic thanks to the blessing of the Phoenix. And he's still beloved by everyone. Well, everyone except his mother, who feels that he must be worthless since the Phoenix rejected him. Duke Elwyn, however, sees his son's prowess in battle, and that prowess is something he desperately needs as he plans to go to war with the Iron Kingdom to reclaim their mother crystal. He takes his two sons to Phoenix Gate, a stronghold that houses a temple sacred to the Phoenix, to consult the words of the ancestors before going to war, as is his custom. But on the eve of them doing this, a squad of dragoons from the Holy Empire of Sandbreck, who by the way are supposed to be Rosaria's allies, infiltrates the stronghold, sets it on fire, and assassinates Duke Elwyn. They try to get to Joshua too, but he instinctively activates his powers and transforms into the Phoenix. With such great power as this, he should be perfectly safe, right? Wrong. Yep, this is a second icon of fire, which by the way shouldn't even be possible. But it appears and murders Joshua while Clive is helpless to intervene. The very next morning, Annabella leads the Imperial Dragoons searching the rubble for survivors, revealing that she orchestrated all of this, selling her husband and sons out for a more comfortable future in Sandbreck. They find Clive unconscious but alive, and she spares him only to make some use of him as a soldier. She has him marked with the brand of a bearer and forces him into the military of Sandbreck. She also marries the Emperor of Sandbreck as part of the arrangement they made together.
I only stand here today because of Joshua. 13 years I've waited for this chance.
13 years later, Clive is still a slave in Sandbreck, and he's kept himself going only with the hope of revenge against the icon that killed his brother. The only visual clue he has is a mysterious hooded man that he saw right before everything went wrong, which isn't much to go on. In the intervening time since Joshua died, Rosaria has become a province of Sandbreck, but before this the Iron Kingdom sacked Rosawith, killed all the men in the city, and carried off the women as captives. Now the Iron Kingdom is marching on Dhalmekia, a nation that occupies much of southern Storm, and which acts as home to Titan's dominant. The Iron Blood, however, have recently obtained Shiva's dominant, and the two icons ravage the battlefield before forcing a stalemate. Meanwhile, it seems that Dhalmekia isn't the only nation nervous about Shiva's dominant, as a small unit of soldiers from Sandbreck was dispatched to the battlefield with orders to bring back her head. One of these soldiers was Clive. They find Shiva's dominant after the battle and subdue her, but before Clive can deal the finishing blow, he realizes the person he's about to kill is in fact Jill Warwick, the girl from the northern tribes that he grew up with, who was captured by the Iron Kingdom when they sacked Rosawith. Unable to go through with killing her, Clive betrays his fellow soldiers and tries to escape with Jill, but more of the Iron Bloods show up to kill them both. Thankfully, Clive's old dog, Torgal, finds them, and with Torgal is a very important someone. So this guy's name is Sid. He's the dominant of Ramu, the Warden of Thunder, and former Lord Commander of the army of Waloed, a kingdom in Ash. Some time ago, he left his position and formed the Hideaway, a place that he envisions as a sanctuary for both dominants and bearers to die on their own terms, as he puts it. He takes Jill there for medical attention, and also shows particular interest in Clive's account of a second icon of fire, because again, that shouldn't be possible.
Not that I've ever set too much store by holy doctrine, but on that point, it's clear. The thing is, you don't strike me as a liar.
He offers to help Clive in his quest for revenge, and they followed rumors of a dominant of fire to Lostwind, a small village in Sandbreck. Unfortunately, the kingdom of Waloed got there first, and leading their investigation is Benedicta, dominant of Garuda, the Warden of Wind, and head of Waloed's intelligence corps. She also has a long history with Sid that we won't get into in this video, so stay tuned for a Benedicta character analysis coming soon. Anyway, she'd already captured this dominant of fire before Clive turned up, so Clive and Cid follow her to Caer Norvin, a recently captured Imperial stronghold. They sneak in to confront her, but Cid is badly wounded during the fighting, and so Clive and Torgal have to fight her alone. This was legit one of the best boss fights I've ever gotten to be a part of, and I'm planning to talk more about that in a future video too. But for now, what matters is that Clive did in fact win. And upon his victory, the power of Garuda leaves Benedicta, and Clive gains a blessing from it similar to the one that he received previously from the Phoenix. The process of gaining Garuda's power temporarily immobilized Clive, so Benedicta was able to escape with her guards. But almost immediately after, bandits show up, kill her guards, and are prepared to molest her. In her desperation, she draws in too much ether and transforms fully into a raging Garuda, but she's not able to control its power. She summons a maelstrom of massive proportions, but Clive, watching from afar, hears a voice calling to him from inside the whirlwind. He braves the storm to find the same hooded man from Phoenix Gate waiting for him on top of a hillside. But he gets no answers out of him, and then gets rather rudely interrupted by Garuda. And during that battle, Clive transforms into Ifrit, the very same icon of fire he's been searching for, the one who killed his brother. He then uses its power to kill Garuda too. Meanwhile, Lord Margrace, the dominant of fire Benedicta captured, escapes in all the confusion.
I killed Joshua! I killed them all! I'm a monster! And I deserve to die! So end it! End it now!
So while Clive grapples with the realization that he is in fact his brother's killer, Jill wakes up, which is honestly the best thing that could have happened for Clive at that moment. She's way gentler with him than he believes he deserves. She believes fully in his goodness, and understands the notion of feeling like a monster since the Iron Kingdom forced her to do terrible things while she was their captive. At her suggestion, they go back to Phoenix Gate to find answers, and as they travel through Rosaria, they see how the treatment of bearers has become worse since they fell under Sanbreque's control. They also find Lady Hannah, whose husband taught Clive to fight, taking refuge with bearers in Eastpool. When they do reach Phoenix Gate, Clive has another vision, which confirms the truth. His icon, Ifrit, awoke within him at Phoenix Gate, and he wasn't able to control its power. In his mind, he dissociated himself from the memories of killing Joshua, subconsciously denying the awakening to save himself the guilt. After accepting his powers, he gains some control over them, but he still cannot transform into Ifrit at will the way most dominants can. On their way back through Rosaria, they see Imperial troops slaughtering the citizens of Eastpool, including Lady Hannah. Together, Clive and Jill defeat the soldiers, but the damage has already been done. Unable to stomach further destruction, Clive goes back to Cid and offers support for Cid's cause, promising to create a world where people can both live and die on their own terms. Cid, meanwhile, proposes the most daring possible theory about the nature of magic.
I must have misheard. You mean to tell me that the mother crystals are the reason the world is dying? Are you mad?
Land drained so dry of its ether, not even the rats remained. But where was it all going? I spent years searching for an answer, until I saw it standing right in front of me. Alright, listen. Take this crystal. How does it allow us to conjure magics? Answer, by drawing ambient ether from the air. They're one and the same, although admittedly this here fits more easily in the pocket.
But the mother crystals are massive, some as large as mountains.
So you see the problem. Imagine just how much ether can be drawn by something that size.
Yeah, so in order to achieve his vision of freedom for all people and stop the world from dying, Cid believes that all the mother crystals need to be destroyed. He has tried in the past to destroy the mother crystal in Sanbreque, but that attempt was rather rudely interrupted by Dion Lesage, Prince of Sanbreque and also the dominant of Bahamut, the Warden of Light. This time, Clive, Jill, and Cid reach the mother crystal's heart, which Cid uses the power of Ramuh to destroy. But when he does that, things get weird. As in, a portal opens and an otherworldly monster badly wounds Cid and drags Clive to another dimension, kind of weird. While in this interdimensional realm, this mysterious voice whispers in Clive's ear and puts him to a test, having him use the power of Ifrit to destroy the beast. Back at the Mother Crystal, the source of the voice reveals itself, a being called Ultima, which intends to merge its consciousness with Clive's. Cid recognizes Ultima, however, and intervenes, and then another unlikely savior arises, Lord Margrace.
In ashen grip, let ember glow, to kindle flames anew.
Oh. You have learned our name. What else have you learned, Phoenix?
Guess Foul C don't go down as easy as the rest of us.
Ease is not the issue. You have not fought to win.
Oh wait, that's from the wrong game. But yeah, I guess the icon with the whole secondary theme of healing and rebirth wouldn't go down quite as easily as the rest of us. Joshua is alive, and apparently he's been following Ultima's actions for some time now. To keep Ultima from using Clive as some kind of vessel, Joshua uses the power of Phoenix to seal Ultima inside his own body, and then he leaves. Meanwhile, Cid's hideaway, the sanctuary he envisioned for bearers, is under attack. So this guy is Hugo, dominant of Titan, the Warden of Earth, and lover of Benedicta before she died. After receiving news that Benedicta had died at Cid's hands, he swore revenge and had his men track Clive and Jill back to the hideaway, which he proceeded to destroy. Some of Cid's people were able to make it out safe, but many of them died. Cid himself died of his injuries before Joshua turned up, but before that he gave Clive some of Ramuh's essence, meaning Clive has now been blessed by the power of 3 icons.
And if it's an outlaw the world needs to help it break free. Stop. Please. I can think of none better than you.
That night 5 years ago, we destroyed what for many was a symbol of hope. For a reason they'll never know.
In the 5 years that pass after Cid dies, a lot of pieces move across Storm. The Blight is only continuing to spread following the destruction of the Drake's Head Mother Crystal. Meanwhile, the Empire has moved south and invaded the Crystalline Dominion, which has been a neutral party so far, and claimed their Mother Crystal. Joshua is still on the move, and in fact he's searching for Dion Lesage in hopes of enlisting him as an ally against Ultima. The strain of keeping Ultima in prison is also wreaking havoc on Joshua's body, making him weak and sickly. Meanwhile, Clive has taken up the mantle of Cid and continued his old mentor's mission of liberating bearers and destroying the Mother Crystals. He also established a new hideaway in the middle of a lake. Hugo Kupka, enraged that he couldn't kill the old Cid, has been setting up traps for Clive the past 5 years, unaware that Clive was the one who actually killed Benedicta. Clive remains resolute, believing in Cid's vision, but the constant harassment from Hugo threatens to only make things worse for the people he's trying to protect. Unfortunately, there's only so much he can do right now. Dhalmekia's forces are at the Dominion's gates, and the conflict there is being watched closely by the Iron Kingdom in the west and by Waloed to the east.
While the 2 nations beat their shields, the rest sharpen their daggers, ready to set upon the war-weary victor. They'll never see us coming.
So with Sanbreque under siege, and with Hugo actively hunting Clive and Dhalmekia, neither is a safe option to strike at right now. Waloed is too far removed to strike at, so Clive and Jill make for the Iron Kingdom to destroy the Drake's Breath Mother Crystal, the very same one that Clive almost went to war to reclaim many years ago. This is also personal for Jill because, again, she was once the Iron Kingdom's captive, and she promised a long time ago that their high priest, who forced her to commit atrocities as Shiva's dominant, would die at her hand, and her hand alone. After liberating more of the Iron Kingdom's captives, she uses the power of Shiva to help Clive reach the Mother Crystal and destroy it. She also fulfills her promise by slaying the High Priest. We don't see any weird portals to other dimensions opening this time, but Clive still has plenty of problems on his hands. Namely, Hugo has finally figured out his true identity as the former Prince of Rosario. So he makes an arrangement with Empress Annabella to attack Rosalith, Clive's old home, in hopes that that will finally lure Clive out of hiding, which it does. He captures Clive that day and tries to execute Jill, who I should mention Clive has slowly been falling in love with during their time together, and destroys Duke Elwyn's old throne. Clive in turn finally reveals that he was the one who killed Benedicta, making this fight especially personal for both of them. Unfortunately, before Clive can move in for the kill, he receives a blessing from Titan, which immobilizes Clive long enough for Hugo to be rescued. Except the troops that rescued him weren't from Dhalmekia. They were royalists from Waloed. Clive follows them back to Dhalmekia, where he finally does kill Hugo and destroys their mother crystal, but the question of why royalists are interfering in Dhalmekia still lingers. Meanwhile, the player sees a cutscene where King Barnabas, leader of Waloed, calls Clive Mythos, hinting that he may be in league with Ultima. Clive goes back to share the news of Hugo's death with Cid's people, especially with Mid, Cid's daughter. And yes, I know, but their full names are Cidolfus and Midadol, so I'm perfectly fine with just calling them Cid and Mid. Anyway, Mid has been in the Free City studying engineering before this, and she has plans now to build an engine-powered warship to rival the Einherjar, the flagship of Waloed. Clive briefly assists her on that front before he sets off with Jill for the Dominion, which houses the last Mother Crystal in Storm. Unknown to him, Joshua is also there, and he's finally gotten in touch with Dion Lesage to convince him of the threat that Ultima poses.
At ease. We stand in the presence of the Phoenix. You wouldn't want to get your fingers burned.
I hope I'm not interrupting.
Not at all. Though I admit, I did not expect such a distinguished guest.
You know, my favorite part of this is that Dion Lesage truly is everything Joshua believed him to be. He takes the warnings about Ultima to heart, and after seeing the newfound cruelty gripping his father and his stepmother's manipulative behavior, becomes convinced that his stepmother and his new stepbrother Olivier are both in Ultima's thrall. Unable to stand by and watch any longer, he declares Annabella a traitor and has his dragoons organize a coup, doing everything he can to both protect the civilians and restore righteousness in Sandbreck. But everything goes horribly wrong. His father takes the spear intended for Olivier, his stepbrother, and Dion's guilt over what happened, combined with Ultima's influence, causes him to lose control of his powers. He transforms into a rampaging Bahamut and lays waste to the city, risking destroying everything he worked hard to protect. But Joshua, also unable to sit back and watch, transforms into Phoenix despite the havoc that it wreaks on his body, and goes to confront Bahamut. Clive rushes to assist, transforms into Ifrit, and together he and Joshua fuse their powers and bodies together, becoming a winged version of Ifrit called Ifrit Risen. Remember this for later because it's super important. They're able to defeat Bahamut together and not kill Dion doing it, but Clive still gains part of Bahamut's essence due to his victory. Back in the Dominion, Clive's efforts to reach his brother also brought him face to face with his traitorous mother, who is terrified both by the recent attempt on Olivier's life and by seeing Joshua still alive. Dion, gathering his remaining strength, finally kills Olivier, who is revealed to have just been a thrall of Ultima, and this sends Annabella over the edge, causing her to kill herself. You know, as much as I hated Annabella as a person for what she did to her family, I definitely didn't expect her to go out like that. That was not an easy scene to watch.
If it is consciousness that weaves your wills together, consciousness that blurs the boundary between your own will and that of others, then we shall set you apart once more.
So Ultima has apparently been watching all of this, and he realizes that Clive's bonds with the people around him are strengthening his will and making him resistant to Ultima's influence. So, with the last Mother Crystal and Storm destroyed, he works a spell called Primogenesis, which casts a pall of hopelessness over the world in hopes of breaking those ties that strengthen Clive's will. This causes the hastening of the blight in some areas on Storm, while others are plagued by random ether floods that turn all living things into Akashic, mindless beings infused with an overabundance of life energy. We've seen these types of creatures before in the vicinity of Mother Crystal, so that's nothing new. But usually these are mindless beasts with no direction or will, but now we're seeing large groups of them everywhere, threatening what's left of civilization. We also find out that the Royalists in the Waloed have been able to mobilize both Orcs and Akashic, which confirm that they are indeed in league with Ultima. We finally meet them in the Free Cities, which is where Mid has been building her warship, and we're able to defeat them just fine until we come face to face with King Barnabas, who happens to be dominant of Odin, the Warden of Darkness. Clive loses horrifically against him in battle, but Barnabas spares his life because Ultima still wants him to be a vessel. Joshua manages to escape with Clive while Jill provides cover as Shiva, but she gets captured by Barnabas. So Clive and his crew use the Enterprise, mid-warship, to give chase. They catch up to the Einherjar, and Clive successfully rescues Jill, but Barnabas, as Odin, easily defeats Joshua in battle and proceeds to clown Clive a second time after splitting the ocean apart with his sword. Jill uses the power of Shiva this time to escape with Clive, and she later blesses Clive with Shiva's power, hoping to give him the strength to prevail against Barnabas next time they meet. They also... well, I think you can guess what happens here. In and around this, Joshua has slowly been filling us in on what's been going on. After surviving what happened at Phoenix Gate, he was taken in by the Undying, a secret organization that's long been in service to the ruler of Rosaria. They've been looking after Joshua the whole time and helping him learn more about Ultima. Ultima, it turns out, is a godlike being who was once worshipped on Storm and still revered on Ash, which is why Waloed is in league with him. This also explains why Sid, who was once Lord Commander of Waloed's armies, recognized Ultima way back when and tried to stop him. But Ultima's exact plans are still a mystery. After learning that Ultima was the one who created the Mother Crystals, however, Joshua theorizes that he's trying to cast a spell, one that requires a tremendous amount of ether to cast and a vessel powerful enough to channel it. The Mother Crystals would serve to pool the world's ether, and Clive would be the intended vessel, a being who has absorbed the power of many icons. Clive therefore sets off with renewed resolve to Ash, hoping to bring down the last Mother Crystal and foil Ultima's designs. But there Barnabas, who's completely sold his will to Ultima, forces a confrontation, hoping to shape Clive into the vessel Ultima desires. He also reveals that Ultima intends to turn all living beings into Akashic, and insists that surrendering one's will is the only way to enter the new world Ultima plans to build. Clive, however, rejects this, insisting that spirit and will are what make people human, and he finally prevails against Barnabas. In doing so, however, he gains the blessing of Odin and finally becomes the vessel that Ultima has been searching for.
You see, Clive, we're not alone. If we are to win the day, we must all play our part. And ours. Ours lies beyond those doors.
Finally convinced that he needs help in resisting Ultima's will and bringing him down, Clive accepts Joshua's help in destroying the last Mother Crystal. When they move to do so, however, Ultima takes them to the interdimensional realm again and finally reveals his intentions. The Fallen, it transpires, were his race, a race with Ifrit-like bodies that were almost destroyed by the Blight. They abandoned their physical forms, came to Valisthea, and, finding it rich with ether, enacted a plan just as Joshua described. They created Mother Crystals that pour the land's ether, and created humans to sow the seeds for Mythos, a physical vessel they needed to channel the ether and remake the world. What Ultima never expected was that, while he slept, humans would develop an independent will, and then form bonds with each other to strengthen that will. This is how Clive continues to resist Ultima's influence. His bonds with the people around him, especially with Joshua, give him strength when Ultima tries to convince him to abandon hope. He resolves to fight, even if the road is long and arduous, in hopes of giving the people around him a better tomorrow. So Ultima didn't get the vessel he worked so hard for. But now, with the Mother Crystals all destroyed, he creates a new crystal called Origin, and prepares to fuse with the others of his race to become even more godlike in power. So, after sharing one last emotional moment with Jill, Clive sets off with Joshua and Dion Lesage to try and bring Ultima down for good. They combine the powers of their icons against him, but Ultima prevails against them all and kills Dion. Clive and Joshua carry on, but Joshua is weakened by both the recent battles and the strain of keeping Ultima imprisoned inside him. Because yeah, that's still a thing. But that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, Ultima has still been plenty present enough during our recent adventures despite being imprisoned inside Joshua. Well, it turns out that the various members of Ultima's race share a collective consciousness. This includes the one inside Joshua, the one we're talking to now, the hooded man that we've met multiple times, the one we met in Drake's Head way back when, and the ones inside all the other Mother Crystals. Yep, each Mother Crystal contained the spirit of others in Ultima's race who acted as their beating hearts. Meaning that, while they served the purpose of gathering ether, Ultima always planned for them to be destroyed, so he could merge all of his race together and become all-powerful. This does include the one inside Joshua, whose body is too weak to contain it any longer. It bursts from his chest, killing him, and allowing Ultima to enact his grand plan. But hope is not yet lost.
So absorbed was he in his own desires, so driven by his own will alone, that he shunned the one thing that could have made him truly powerful. Faith. The same faith people now place in you. His power may be absolute, but so is ours. And so will yours be.
Before dying, Joshua was able to give Clive the full power of Phoenix and let him transform into Ifrit Risen again. This final form of Ifrit was meant to be Ultima's great vessel, the one he'd used to remake the world. Instead, with the combined powers of the icons he's absorbed, the hopes of humanity on his shoulders, and an iron will, Clive stands against Ultima and finally destroys him, then proceeds to absorb his power. Afterward, he uses the power of Phoenix to revive Joshua, then uses the power of Ultima to destroy the crystals and remove magic, the true cause of the Blight, from the world. With this, he finally gives humankind hope for a free, healed world, but the cost on his own body is great, and we see him begin turning to stone just as bearers do when they use too much magic. We never get to see what actually happens to him, but the ending heavily implies that he does in fact perish. Joshua, meanwhile, survives to tell their story. A post-credit scene shows the world many years in the future, a fully healed world where magic is just a fairy tale, and Joshua's record of the War of the Icons is known as the Final Fantasy. And there we have it, the 16th installment in the Final Fantasy franchise. Personally, I really love the level of detail the story went into, and I think they handled the intrigue, the deeper story behind the Mother Crystals, and the theme of hope, strength, and identity really well. I really wish we could have gotten to see a happy ending between Clive and Jill, because that hit me so hard, but I'm glad to see the world that Clive was fighting for did exist, and I'm glad to see them say that it wasn't easy either. Clive fully admits that, with the Blight consuming everything and so much lost, healing wouldn't be easy or even guaranteed. It would take a long time for both the world and the human race to recover from everything that happened, but the effort would be worth it, and he held on to resolve despite the setbacks, which is something that Ultima could never understand. I'm planning to dive more into Clive's and other characters' arcs in future videos, so please again do subscribe to the channel if you want to see those. And let me know down in the comments what characters you're most excited to see me analyze. For now though, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and that you have a good rest of your day. Cheers everyone, I'll see you next time.